Now, welcome back. Charlie Cosser was just 17 when he went to a party and he never came home. He was stabbed at the end of, end-of-year celebration as he partied with his friends in the grounds of a farmhouse in Sussex. He died 2 days after being attacked.
Now, you did warn us you were going to feel very emotional through this, weren't you, Rob? And I think you will be watching as well. Now, last week, his killer, 17-year-old Yura Varabras, was jailed for life. Charlie's heartbroken parents have vowed to fulfil a promise they made to him while he lay in critical care, that they would dedicate their lives to stop the needless tragedy happening to another family. Incredibly, we're now joined by Charlie's mum and dad, Tara and Martin. Good to see you this morning. I know every day is a struggle, and I know that you're motivated to come and talk to us and to everybody watching at home because of that promise, aren't you?
Absolutely. I mean, when we were told Charlie wasn't going to survive and he'd sustained irreversible brain damage, I made him a promise. It just came from nowhere, but I whispered in his ear two things. One was for justice, and you could argue we've got an element of that. But the second one was to educate young groups of children about the dangers and the measurable impacts of knife crime. And that's how our charity, Charlie's Promise, was born.
What happened and how did you find out about what was happening? Talk us through, if it's not too unbearable, talk us through what happened that night and then the horrific hours that followed.
We had a knock on the door, the knock on the door that every parent dreads. It was 12:30 in the early hours of Sunday morning, and the police said Charlie's been stabbed and his injuries are life-threatening. So we quickly, bundled in the back of a police car to be taken over to see him. All the time saying, this isn't going to happen, he's going to be OK, he's going to survive, he can't die, you can't possibly imagine that, something like that would happen. Eloise, our 15-year-old daughter, was with us in the police car at the time, holding on to her dear life. Our elder son, Adam, he was at home, and we rang him and said, that your brother's been stabbed, you need to make your way. We were on our way to the Royal Sussex in Brighton. And on the way there, we found out that Charlie had suffered a traumatic cardiac arrest
as a result
of his injuries. And
we were diverted, weren't we, to the lay-by where he had this massive cardiac arrest, and we were kept in the car. Police came back in and said they've had to operate on him, they've had to hand massage his heart to stabilise him, literally. We were then rushed to the Royal Sussex, where we were locked in the car because they wouldn't let us see him, they wouldn't let us out, and it materialised Charlie had sustained another cardiac arrest. We were taken into a room, a box-sized room. Tara, myself, Adam had arrived with his partner, Jade, and our daughter, Eloise, who, again, as Tara says, was 15 at the time. A consultant came in and said, there's a significant chance your son's not going to survive surgery, and, horrific. We waited for 4 hours with no more news. And without going through all of the details, very, very long story short, 7 hours later, we were able to see Charlie. He had a perforated bowel. His spleen had been torn. He was stabbed in the aorta. He lost every milligram of blood in his body, had to have so many blood transfusions. But he fought so hard for 2 days until he sustained swelling. He had some swelling around his brain. Again, it was the same sort of story. Rushed in. He may not survive this surgery. We went back in to see the consultant after the theatre, and we were told the fluid around his brain had come down so quickly, and he'd sustained irreversible brain damage.
Now, I don't know, I can't even begin to know what that does to you. It's a moment when he's lying in a coma, you whisper in his ear, two things. One, I'm going to teach people about knife crime, and the other word, that whisper, I'm going to get justice.
Yes.
There was a trial.
Yes.
Do you feel like you've had justice?
Do you know what? To a degree, I think it's really difficult because Tara and I talk about this a lot. In fact, our whole family do. Nothing brings Charlie home.
No.
Our little boy, and he was a gentle little boy as well. Didn't even like raised voices, Charlie. Nothing brings Charlie home, and it's destroyed our family. But we vowed to not let Yura Varabras take any more from us. And Yes, you know, he vacated his plea. He originally pled guilty, so we had to go through a trial. We had to wait 6 months, go for a trial.
So just to be clear, it looked like it was going to be a straightforward situation. He was going to be named at the last minute.
Yeah.
He changed his mind, new set of lawyers, which meant you had to go through suffering a trial.
We did, and we saw things and heard things we should never have had to have heard or seen. Video footage, moments about Charlie before he collapsed, you know, and we shouldn't have had to go through that. That was, as I say, Euro Veribris, who has shown no remorse throughout.
And so, just to be clear, his defence in the case, as far as I can gather, is he didn't remember, that was it?
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah. You live in West Sussex. When people have an image of knife crime, they often think of the centre of large urban cities. They think of, you know, dark streets and behind the back of nightclubs, and all sorts of images come to mind. You're in the country. He's at a party of a friend of a friend's.
Yeah.
You know, not quite in the middle of nowhere, but, you know, it's a very different picture.
Yeah.
Did it even occur to you that something like this could happen?
No. We live quite close to Guildford, and actually, you know, at 17, we weren't happy about Charlie perhaps going into Guildford at night because there's nowhere for them to go. And he was due to go on his first friend's holiday on the Monday, and he'd said he was going to go into Guildford to meet a few friends that he, you know, wasn't going away with. And we said, "Oh, Charlie, don't go to Guildford. You know, we don't really like you going to Guildford. Come on, you're going away." So when he said then that he'd been invited to this party, you know, we relaxed a little, you know, because you're right, we do live in a protected, you know, in our little Surrey suburb, and yeah, but I think, you know, it's the shock factor, isn't it? That, you know, you're right. You hear about, you know, the cities and the troubled, and it's, you know, it's. We say if it can happen to Charlie, it can happen to anybody.
And that's the message, that you're now going into schools to encourage people to learn that, you know...
Absolutely. Absolutely, Kate. So the charity's got a number of objects, but primarily we're going to start off, and I've already done a number of talks going into schools. But we don't just want it to be me. We want to use Charlie's friends. We had the consultant, Alex, from the Royal Sussex, who came to our charity launch, who came to our murder trial, who would also like to talk to children. Lee, a paramedic who operated on Charlie when he had his cardiac arrest with the HEMS doctor, would also like to talk to children. Because the point is, so many people are impacted by something like this. It snowballs. It's varying different levels. It's not just us as parents. Yes, and Adam and Eloise as our children, we feel it more than anyone. But actually, there are Charlie's friends that have been affected.
Of course.
The community.
And your own grief, you know, the centre of that sort of stone that ripples out. People react in different ways. How have you tried to manage the last year, and what do you want people to know about how hard it is, really?
Well, Martin and I grieve in very different ways. I feel comfort, well, not comfort, but I want to be at home. You know, that's where Charlie was, all my memories. That's too painful for Martin. He wants to escape. So, you know, we don't actually spend a huge much time together in the house. I think it's just a very, very lonely place because, as you know, no one can possibly understand unless you've been through something like this. And we have a very tight group of friends that, you know, help us. You know, they just are there, and, you know, they don't try and you know, tell us what we should be doing or how to, you know, what would work for us.
Do you still feel he's there?
Yeah.
I mean, is there still a connection, like you want to go to your phone?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. You know, I still send him a message every morning to tell him I love him. And, you know, I
still open his door to see. I know he's not there, but honestly, it's so hard to... I don't think even now, knowing the way our life is now, even sitting here on daytime TV, it's like, it's all so crazy.
Doesn't feel real.
You know, listening to your grief, and it's deep and will connect with so many people, that promise that you made to do justice and to teach young people about this, in as quick a way as you can, help us understand what your message is to young people that might go into spaces with knives.
I'll tell you what my message is. It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter where you live, working class, affluent area. Everybody has a choice. And when you take a knife out and you make that choice to take a knife out and plunge it into an innocent human being and take their life, death is final. We have a life sentence. We were a normal family. a kind, happy family. Charlie was a normal boy, and it has destroyed our world because someone made that choice. There are other ways. So please, please think twice about what you're doing because you can't take it back.
I just want to thank you both for your courage. You know, we so often hear from people, but rarely as powerfully from the victims. And it's not just the victim, it's an entire family. And what you've articulately shared with us today means so much.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kate.
Thank you.
If you've been affected by any of the issues we've been discussing, you can find advice and support at itv.com/helplines.